From the 22 News Plus studio, this is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of InFocus. I'm your host, Patrick Berry. You remember the Charlie Brown Halloween special when he walks around and they go trick-or-treating and he looks down in his bag and he says, "I got a rock"? Well, today we're talking about rocks and a whole bunch of other things. I'm so excited today. Across the desk from me is Richard Little. He is the professor emeritus at Greenfield Community College. He is, if not New England's, but our nation's preeminent geologist. And it's a funny story of how this came about, because I was just thinking about one day, what's under our feet when we walk around? You know, I I do some gardening in my yard and I dig up bushes or plants or whatever. And it's all dirt and sand in Westfield, but there's more to it. There's the dinosaur footprints up and down the Connecticut River Valley. There's so much more about what's under our feet. So I tracked down Mr. Little, and we are talking about exactly that, rocks and what's under our feet. So Professor Little, thank you so very much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you very much. That's such a great question because, you know, there's two things here. Not only do we live in the best place in the world to study geology, and I'll explain exactly why I say that, but geology is also much more than rocks. It's also our view. So it's not only what's in your garden and under your feet, it's also the creation of the landscape that we all see and live in every day. So there's wonderful geology stories here that are kind of hidden.
It's funny you say that. Things are kind of hidden. The things we see every single day, we probably, 99.9% of us probably pay zero attention to driving along Route 91 and going between, the gap, at the East Hampton, Northampton, Holyoke line there, wherever that is,
the water gap.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
We probably just go up and down that all the time, or, you're driving, along the Connecticut River up in Greenfield or wherever it might be. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of things if you just know where to look, correct?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
So before we get into all of that, tell me a little bit about you. So were you a young, rock collector as a kid?
Oh, okay. That's a good good question, because I'm not a collector. I collect things for Greenfield Community College and for bringing to classes as illustrations and for samples and things. But no, I'm not a big collector. And when I was really, really young, I remember picking mica apart.
Yeah.
So that was one thing.
It was one of those rocks that just sort of fell apart in your hand.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, well, okay. I didn't know anything about that, of course. But then I think the most important thing in growing up was I became a Boy Scout. And we used to climb in the White Mountains. We'd go up and climb Mount Shikara and other places. And so I had a chance to experience the landscape, the mountains and so forth in a way that I didn't really know the origins of them, but at least I was out into nature and appreciated that. And so move on to college. I get to college, which was Clark University. And at Clark University, my first semester, my advisor said, "Well, you have one more class to take. Take something you don't know anything about." And I said, "What's geology?" And I ended up in this wonderful geology class with an instructor that obviously had a lot of excitement about his field. And everything just clicked. All of a sudden, I realized that the landscape I had just loved and explored had all these meanings that I didn't know about.
So let me ask you, what did you go to college thinking you wanted to do?
Oh boy, it was a blank slate.
Okay,
honestly,
which is actually really good.
Honestly,
because that you take those collegiate years to figure out what you want to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I wanted to be a doctor for a while, and then I sat down one day and realized that I don't want to do this. So I want to go hit rocks and look at landscapes.
I'm gonna go pound rocks
and
for a
take
living.
field trips. So I realized that that's one of the great things about college. Right. You should take a whole range of topics to find out what really spikes your interest, enthusiasms, and passion.
And your story is the perfect example of that. You never know what your passion is in life. I mean, it might not be college. It could be 30 years out of college when you find your passion.
Yeah. Sure.
So
you can have many passions.
True.
Too.
Good point.
Right.
Good point. Right. So you end up becoming a professor of geology at Greenfield Community College.
Yes.
So you so far, just in the very few minutes that we've chatted, I can tell you have a passion for your profession?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. It's just the way you grow up,
Right.
and I feel kind of sorry for the kids that grow up today and don't have um, all the experiences like I had with Boy Scouting.
Right.
That's something that just got me outside and into the natural world. And I think today, with all the computers and gaming systems, you see so much of people just being inside and
Right.
inside and inside, and there's now a great disconnect with the natural world.
And
And
it's
so,
incumbent upon us too, as parents and guardians, to get our youngsters outside and
yes,
explore. Turn over logs, look at bugs, pick up
right,
rocks, look at leaves, whatever it might be.
exactly, yes.
So, how long were you a professor for? And are you still? Well, you're professor emeritus, so you're no longer teaching.
Yeah, well, I have been teaching as an adjunct.
Okay.
So after I retired, I remained teaching up until last year, and then they actually hired someone to fill the full-time position, and so they did not need me to go into the classroom anymore. So
Okay.
right now I'm actually retired from the classroom, but I still do a lot of public programs. I lead field trips where we go out for 3 hours or so around the region,
Okay.
and that's a lot of fun. I go to classrooms occasionally, so libraries. I do a lot of talks around the region.
And do you find that people are just absolutely amazed at the end of your talk? People are amazed at what's in our area.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's mind-blowing for them to realize that the landscape that they're all so familiar with has all of this hidden history that is so dramatic.
Right.
It is just very dramatic. You can't miss it. You don't have to be a professional geologist to appreciate this. So
It's
fun.
interesting. Some of the things we will talk about today are Africa's impact on New England, which I find interesting.
Mhm.
Lake Hitchcock. I think a lot of people may know about Lake Hitchcock.
Yeah, they've
But
heard about it. I've had people ask me, well, where is it? I want to go swimming. And I said, well, you missed it by 14,000 years.
only that recently.
Yes, exactly. It's so recent.
Oh, interesting.
'Cause
So,
the
so
Connecticut River couldn't come back to our valley until Lake Hitchcock drained. So, all the river terraces and
okay.
waterfalls that we see up and down the valley, that's all over the last 14,000 years. I mean, it's amazingly quick.
In a span of time, you're right. 14,000 years is the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
When, how old is Earth? Billion years old, roughly?
4.5.
4.5 billion years old.
Yes.
So 14,000 years is,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
yeah, really
It's yesterday.
the blink
Yeah.
of just like yesterday.
Mm.
But there are so many things to talk about right here in the Connecticut River Valley. We are up on our first commercial break, so stay with us, folks. There's plenty to talk about. We'll be right back after this.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry. This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Welcome back, everyone, to this edition of InFocus. Today, we're talking about our geology and topography here in the greater Western Mass area. Richard Little, he is the professor emeritus of geology at Greenfield Community College. Try saying that fast. So, Professor Little, thank you so very much for joining me.
Yes.
There is something fascinating right here in the Pioneer Valley. There are roughly 8 to 10 places around the planet where you can find these things, but
Yes.
every other place except for the Pioneer Valley is a remote location. Human beings just aren't. You can't drive a car, go to a parking lot, and go walk.
That's right.
Where you can here. Armored mud balls.
Yes.
Okay. And you laugh about it. Okay. First up, what is an armored mud ball?
Okay. First of all, science can be funny, right? And so the armored mud balls are definitely an amusing name for an extremely rare feature. And I'm fortunate enough to be the person that discovered these here in the Connecticut River Valley. And so, anyway, the quick story is, and then we'll talk about how they form, right? So
Okay.
don't leave, everybody. You got to hear how they form. So I get a job at Greenfield Community College, and my wife and I come here from California, actually, where I was finishing my degree, and traveling around the area, just getting used to this new location. I drove to Turner's Falls, and there used to be an old suspension bridge between Turner's Falls and Gill over the Connecticut River. And in this suspension bridge, there were blocks of rock that had round balls in them. And it was just so obvious. It was a block of quarried stone with these round shapes. And the round shapes, when you looked at them closer, used to be mud. And right around the rim of that shape, there were these pebbles. So that was an armor. That was the armor on what it's called the mud ball. So it's an armored mud ball.
So this picture that we're looking at now,
yes,
this is you
from about 1970.
1970,
Yes.
finding, just by chance, finding these armored mud balls in the superstructure of a bridge in where?
That's in Unity Park, Turner's Falls.
So are those still there? Can people walk up and point at them like you're doing there?
Actually, no. There was discussion about what to do with this once they were discovered, because if they were left there without anyone knowing about them being celebrated, the DPW might say, "Oh, we need some rocks for some project," and they could come up and just all of a sudden you'd find they wouldn't be there anymore.
Right.
So we decided, with the permission of the town, to take those cable anchors. They were the suspension cable anchors of the old bridge. To have those dismantled, the DPW could then use some of the rocks for whatever they wanted, and we could take the scientifically important specimens and preserve them at Greenfield Community College.
Okay.
And a couple of them were left on site there at Unity Park. And one of those has now been moved to the Great Falls Discovery Center, which is right nearby in Turner's Falls. It's a state park, actually, the Great Falls Discovery Center. And so these are Jurassic, and we actually have an acronym called the JAM, the JAMB. So we call them the JAMs.
Jurassic Armored Mud Balls.
There it is. And we had a jamboree earlier this year, because one of those specimens that I'm pointing to there, one of those was moved to the Great Falls Discovery Center and is now sitting right in their rock garden at the entrance.
Is that this one?
No, that's Greenfield Community College.
Oh, okay.
That's our geopath at Greenfield Community College, and we have some of the big specimens, which are on the left-hand side of the path. So some of them.
So down in this area by the fire hydrant.
There you go. Right.
Okay.
There's 7 specimens right there that are from that bridge foundation.
Okay. And what is this big rock up here in the foreground?
How about that one? Isn't that something? That came from a glacial tunnel that was roaring into Lake Hitchcock about 16,000 years ago.
Wow.
And so there was a guy from a gravel pit that called me up and said, "Oh, I found an interesting rock. Are you interested?" So when someone calls you up and tells you there's an interesting rock, you say, "Well, yeah." So,
but you being the expert, you got to, okay, how it might be interesting to him, but to you, it's like, no, it's just a rock.
So no, this is a very good rock, because it's a rock that tumbled down a glacial stream in the ice, an ice tunnel. And it tumbled, it got round, it got impacted by all the bumps that it took all the way along. And every time it hit something, there's a little curving fracture called a crescentic fracture.
Okay.
And so this rock is really hard. It's called a quartzite, and it's got these crescentic fractures all over it. So it's a
perfect
really great
example.
Specimen. Yeah, a really great specimen. And so, I got to tell you, everybody, that if you're collecting rocks, it's one thing to find a rock that you really like, but it's a whole nother thing to get any several 100-pound specimen moved from where you find it to where you want to put it. And so this gentleman from Sunderland said, "Okay, I can bring it over." And so he put it in the dump truck and dumped it where we needed it. So anyway, that's the story of finding a big rock.
So I just had this one up on the screen a minute. A dime is in the image, just for size perspective. Is this a close-up of one of those rocks that was a part of the bridge anchoring?
Right. That's
okay.
Right. Yeah, so we should get back to the armored mud balls here, because we haven't finished the origin of the armored mud balls. So I did want to say, though, relative to our last conversation here, topic, you have a picture in the file there of a celebration going on. That's at the Great Falls Discovery Center, and one of those rocks is wrapped in a red ribbon.
Oh, yeah.
And we had 160
see if I can get to that.
Back in June.
There.
Yeah, there it is. We had 160 people in June that celebrated the arrival of this rock. And then we unwrapped it. We had a great time at this ceremony, but it was called the Jamboree.
I
So
love
we
it.
had a Jamboree at the
So
Great Falls.
where can people go to look at this rock that no longer has the red ribbon on it, but where is that?
Yeah, this is the Great Falls Discovery Center, Turners Falls, and it's right on the main street of Turners, right by the bridge, right by the old waterfall. There's a power canal that comes right in there. It's a really super scenic spot, and it is a state park. It's a visitor center, and once again, Great Falls Discovery Center, Turners Falls.
How important is that particular area, that Greenfield, Gill, Turners Falls, Orange area for geology?
Oh, it's super because you have all of these rocks exposed. You see, it's one thing to have great geology that's down under your feet, but if it's under the soil in the forest, you don't see it. And so what's going to expose rocks? It's erosion.
Right.
And what's going to be the best eroder? How about a river? So the Connecticut River has come through there and it's exposed a whole sequence of rocks. And if you're at the Great Falls Discovery Center, you can just look into the riverbed there and see layer by layer by layer by layer.
Oh, okay.
And in some of those layers, you can find fossils like dinosaur footprints. No collecting, however. Let me just tell everybody, this is a
look only.
Preserve.
Look, don't touch.
This is a preserve site, so you do not go out there and start blasting away with your hammer, etc.
So circling back to the armored mud balls, how do they form?
Okay, this is what is so cool. As you saw the picture there with the dime, but that's a great view of what an armored mud ball looks like. It's one of our better samples. But the dark spot in the middle, that's the mud. It's now a hard shale. It's a sandy mud. It's now, of course, a hard rock. And you can see the pebbles that are just all along the rim. And the dime is just there for scale, of course.
So it looks, I mean, if that's a dime, maybe this is about the size of a softball?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, and they come in all different sizes, from golf balls to, we have at the Greenfield Community College path there, there's one the size of a basketball.
Okay.
So they're all different sizes. A basketball is probably one of the larger sizes because you have to roll these things down a stream bed, you see, and not have them break up. That's the key. So we never did get to the formation. So let me make sure that everybody knows the formation. So we need to go back to Jurassic times here. And in Jurassic times, there was a stream that was coming out of nearby mountains into the old Connecticut River Valley. And as the stream flooded, sometimes there would be mud banks that were like hard, dry mud. And those hard chunks of mud would fall into the stream, tumble, and become rounded, like you saw in the picture.
Okay.
They would also become soft on the rim and start to pick up pebbles from the stream bed. And that's how the pebbles get in there. They're stuck from the stream bed. And so it's kind of like rolling a cheese ball into your walnuts or something. The walnuts would be the armor.
So that is a good segue, because it is, many people have probably seen these little tasty treats,
yes,
throughout their year. And how did you describe these?
Those are edible armored mud balls. Yes, once you unwrap them, you will find that there is a chocolate rim with all sorts of little things on the outside. It's actually hazelnuts that are all broken up there. But that's the armor, you see.
But this is an easy way to describe what an armored mud ball is. Is open up one of these little tasty hazelnut treats. And
then, of course, you have to bite into them. And when you bite into them, you find that the hazelnuts don't go all the way through. That's just the armor.
And that's what this picture shows. They're on the outside.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's an edible armored mud ball, but it does have a hazelnut on the inside. So it's like there's a little pseudo rock on the inside.
At least in the candy treat, not the real armored mud ball.
That's right. That's right.
All right, folks, we are up on our second commercial break. Stay with us. There's so much more to talk about. We're back after this.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry. This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Welcome back, everyone, to today's edition of InFocus. Professor Richard Little from Greenfield Community College. He's a geologist. Professor, thank you so very much for joining me. I really do appreciate your time. I didn't know I'd be so fascinated with rocks, but here we are. We were talking about armored mud balls,
Yes,
and how they formed. We talked about this picture here. It's the Great Falls Museum Discovery Center up in Turner's Falls.
That's right.
Okay. And the next photo in this series is that same rock without the ribbons and the bows but you pointing to what folks can see when you stop by the Great Falls Discovery Center.
Yes, absolutely. That particular rock is really extremely rich in armored mud balls here, because there's about 9 of them in there. Some of them are better formed than others. Some of them get broken.
Right.
So you only see pieces. But I'm pointing to 2 beautifully cross-section examples right there that I think everybody can see. But yeah, that's a great place to go to see them.
Is there, what we've been looking at in the pictures are cross sections, and and over here, I'm going to hit the other camera. There's a whole bunch of rocks that you brought into the studio. This one up front, which I think is that one right there, right? Oh, it's that one. Okay.
That's one.
Okay. So those are the cross sections. Is there anywhere in our area to see a armored mud ball in its complete rounded form?
Actually, no, because if you can imagine a ball of mud that's coated in pebbles.
Yep.
If you were to see this totally encased in a rock, it just look like a bunch of pebbles. In other words, it would look like something we call a conglomerate.
Okay.
Right. So you have to see them broken, otherwise you don't know.
Gotcha. So that's where examples like this, where it's in a larger superstructure of a bigger rock.
Right.
Okay.
And luckily, on the inside of that rock that you're looking at here, there could be 20 more of those, all inside there. We just don't know. It would be great if we had a super saw that could just cut sections every 6 inches through there.
An interesting question, because if you took that larger rock and started chipping away, you run the risk of ruining it.
Oh, you would, yeah.
But it's like the trial and error of discovery.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if it makes sense, if you found another one, let's use this as our trial and error rock and cut it and chip it and pound at it to see if you can come up with a fully formed armored mud ball.
Yeah. Well, once again, unless it's like the Ferrero Rocher candy there.
Yeah.
If you don't bite into it, you don't know what's there. If it's just in the wrapper, you say, "Oh, there's something in the wrapper."
So if somebody's out, along a riverbank or somewhere and digging around, and they find like a bunch of pebbles stuck together in a form,
yes, don't call me. Because it's a conglomerate. I get those calls all the time.
Oh, really? Okay.
People say, "Oh, look, I have this rock. It was tumbled down a stream and it's round. I should have brought some in. I didn't this morning." But, so you'll get a round conglomerate rock. Now, do you know what a conglomerate rock is? It's gravel that's been cemented into a rock.
Okay.
So if you can imagine gravel that's in a rock, it goes into a stream, it gets tumbled, so you get a round stream pebble. And it's got pebbles all around it and all the way through it. And so people see that and say, "Oh, I think it's an armored mud ball." But unless it's broken so you can see the mud on the inside, it's not. It's just a round pebble of conglomerate. So,
all right.
Yeah.
So you are working diligently with our state legislature
yes,
to recognize the armored mud ball. Tell me more about that and why.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point, because I've been dealing with armored mud balls since I discovered them back in about 1970. And it just occurred to me that, indeed, these are so rare, and I tell everybody about how rare they are and how lucky we are to have them. And then it occurred to me, well, once I'm no longer here, who's going to care about an armored mud ball?
Right.
And about the same time I was having those thoughts, a guy by the name of Patrick Lewis, who's a state legislator from Framingham, was promoting Podokesaurus as
the Hoyokensis Podokesaurus, the state's dinosaur.
That's right, the state dinosaur. So I just got this thought, well, gee, if we can have a state dinosaur, and we have a state fossil, we have a state rock and a state horse, we have a state muffin, we have a state donut, we have these state symbols that are kind of unique to Massachusetts, or at least they started in Massachusetts. And what could be more unique than an armored mud ball
Right.
that in the whole world, the only place to easily see them is
Right
between
here.
Greenfield, Turners Falls, Gill, and Deerfield.
Okay.
That's the only place in the whole world you can easily see them.
Easily see them. That's the
Yeah.
key word.
And there are about 10 other places in the world, as you were saying earlier, where you can see them on mountainsides. I mean, they're up in Greenland, they're in Spitsbergen, they're down in Trinidad and Ecuador along coastal cliffs. They're in the geological literature as being mentioned,
Right.
but no one can see those.
Interesting.
And no one can ever find them again, most likely. So the only place where you can easily see them is going to be here in Franklin County.
So, what are you doing as far as legislation goes? How are you raising awareness of this?
Right. So I said we need to have a state sedimentary structure, and thanks to the efforts of Susanna Whips, Representative Whips, and also Senator Comerford,
Okay.
they are the main lead sponsors of this.
Yeah, Joe Comerford was recently in that chair not too long
That's
ago.
right.
Okay.
That's right. And so we are now in the second time in the state legislature. The first time we did not get through the first committee. And it's been a real education because the committee said it was sent to study. And I said, great, they're going to have a study. They're going to produce a tome of
Supporting material to get this
exactly.
passed.
Boy, we're really good. No, it went to the wastebasket. And so now we're in the second round here, the next legislative session, and we're doing really well. We got through that committee.
Okay.
And now we're in the Senate Rules Committee, and we are kind of lobbying the people in the Senate Rules Committee. Now, I will tell you that the Rules Committee members have all said, oh, they like this, they're positive. But we also have something like 2,000 bills
at
that
least,
are in the legislature.
This is easy pickings, though. This is an easy one.
It is. There's no cost to the Commonwealth, and it's fun, and it's science, and it gets people really interested in our unique history. So it really should be designated a state sedimentary structure.
So how are you raising awareness of this with the people?
Okay, so
do you have any materials or anything that you can hand out or show people?
Yes, for anyone in the audience who is particularly interested in this, I do have promotional postcards, which I will be glad to send you.
Okay.
We have promotional bumper stickers, of which I'll be glad to send you. We also have armored mud ball hats, and get ready for this, we have a promotional T-shirt.
That is so funny.
The T-shirt here shows you the Jurassic Connecticut River Valley.
Okay.
And it's from a painting by Sunderland artist Will Sillen, by the way. So Will is really famous.
Which is this same image right here?
Oh, there it is. That's the image. So that's our Connecticut River Valley in the Mesozoic time, in the Jurassic time.
Which is 100 million plus years ago.
Yeah, 200 million years ago. And that's when the dinosaurs were walking around here. So in my T-shirt here, we have Will Sillen's painting of the old Rift Valley. And here's Podokesaurus here that's walking, that's rolling armored mud balls into the view. So we have the state dinosaur. Let's see, we get back.
Yep, there you go. Perfect.
We have the state dinosaur. We have the armored mud balls. We have the Will Sillen view of the valley. So anyway, this T-shirts, hats,
everything you need, folks, to help Professor Little get this through the legislature.
So we have a website, by the way.
Okay.
It's go to armoredmudballs.rocks.
.rock.
Yeah,
not .com, not .org, not .net, .rock.
It's rock with an S. Rock with an S. So rocks.
Fantastic. We're up on our next commercial break. Stay with us. I think we're done with mud balls, but there's so much more to talk about in our geological neighborhood. So stay with us. We're back after this.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry. This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to today's edition of In Focus. We're talking about geology, armored mud balls, topography right here in the Connecticut River Valley. It's a fascinating conversation. You drive by things all the time. You probably never even took a second look at it. Professor Richard Little is across the desk from me today. He has so far been a wonderful guest. I've learned so much from him in just the short half hour that I've had him here. But what I do want to share with each of you is this is the book Professor Little wrote. What's the title of it? I can't read it backwards.
It's called Dinosaurs, Dunes, and Drifting Continents, the Geology of the Connecticut River Valley.
So where can folks get this? If they go to armoredmudballs.rocks,
you can.
You can get it there? Okay.
Yes. I actually have another website that's my more personal website that sells hats and T-shirts, but one will link you to the other. And that one's called EarthView, once again, .rocks. So
EarthView.rocks.
EarthView.rocks.
Perfect. Yes. So we're going to shift gears a little bit now. I think we've rolled the mud balls as far as we can roll them, pardon the awful pun.
Oh, no, keep going.
So one of the things I want to talk about now is more of the topography, why the Connecticut River Valley is the way it is.
Oh, yeah.
And I mentioned, early on Lake Hitchcock, and I'll bring up the photo of Lake Hitchcock now. And you had mentioned very early on that this was only about 14,000 years ago, in the blink of an eye, in the history of our planet.
Yep.
What are we looking at? Give me some points of reference in this image.
Okay. So the points of reference in the image, you can see the Holyoke Range, the curving Holyoke Range.
So is that this right here?
That's right. And can you see the gap in the middle? That's where the Connecticut River goes through.
Okay.
What's called the water gap.
So the Oxbow Marina would be just about right here?
There you go. That's it. That's it.
So all this deep purple would have been the lake.
That's the lake, yes.
Interesting.
Yep, that's the shoreline of the lake.
Okay.
And it's really interesting for people to note, I guess, you know where Amherst is there? Can you see the island of Amherst?
This little island right here?
Okay, that's Mount Warner. And then go to your right just a bit more.
This one?
There you go. That's the center of Amherst right there. So Amherst College and the town center and the higher parts of UMass, that's an island in Lake Hitchcock.
Okay, so Pelham would be up in this area.
Yeah, Pelham's in the hills.
Okay,
yes.
And then this is what mountain range is that? The orange one off to the right.
That's the Pelham Hills.
Those are the Pelham Hills. Okay, all right. So this is Lake Hitchcock. Unfortunately, this is a narrowed down view. But how far did Lake Hitchcock extend?
Yeah. Well, let's go through the history here because Lake Hitchcock is one of the most important things to happen to our valley. And I'll tell you why. So
that's why you're here.
Let's go to the glacial age, first of all. So the last maximum of the glacier ice was only 20,000 years ago. So we're not talking millions of years now, hundreds of millions of years in the Jurassic. We're now up to only 20,000.
Okay.
And at that point, ice was completely over us here, a mile thick. And the edge of the ice was at Long Island, New York. So it was building Long Island. That's the so-called terminal moraine built at the edge of the ice. And so from Long Island over to Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket, and then off out to George's Bank underwater. That was the edge of the ice. So everything in New England
was under a mile of ice.
Under a mile of ice or more. It gets thicker as you go north to Canada. Okay. Now the ice is going to melt, obviously, because it's not here today. Well, it is icy outside. But the ice starts to melt. As the ice melts back, at central Connecticut, there was a dam of debris across the old Connecticut Valley. So it blocked the Connecticut Valley. And when the ice melted back further from central Connecticut, the water couldn't get out. That dam held it in. So that was the beginning of Lake Hitchcock. And that was about 18,000 years ago.
And where in central Connecticut was that?
Okay. Do you know where Rocky Hill is, perhaps, just south of Hartford?
I have a family who lives in Rocky Hill.
Well, there you go. So if your family is there, they may know of some old gravel pits that are there that I think are no longer working. But those gravel pits were mining the gravel dam that was Lake Hitchcock's dam.
Okay.
So Lake Hitchcock was dammed in central Connecticut 18,000 years ago. And as the ice melted back, as the ice would do, right, it's going to melt back further and further to the north. The water from the melting ice could not just flow freely back to Long Island Sound. So it got trapped by that dam. And that was the beginning of Lake Hitchcock. So
Basically from Rocky Hill to the south, and how far north?
So the more the ice melts, the lake gradually gets longer and longer and longer.
Okay.
Right. And so as the lake is getting longer, every stream that flows into the Connecticut River today would have flowed, every side stream would have flowed into Lake Hitchcock. And each one of those streams,
Deerfield River, Chicopee River, Westfield River,
the Farmington,
all those.
all the way up and down the valley. And each one of those streams, when they came into Lake Hitchcock, they would build something called a delta. And that's today the source of much of our gravel resources.
Okay.
It also gives us flat tops for things like airports. So
Westover here in Chicopee.
On the Chicopee River Delta.
Barnes in Westfield?
And Barnes is on the Westfield
Bradley?
Delta. Bradley is on the Farmington Delta.
Okay.
So you see, deltas are flat tops, lots of gravel underneath, so they're well drained, and so they're a great spot for an airport. So we have airports on deltas all the way along up and down the valley.
Is that when engineers go to build airports around the country, was that kind of a driving factor?
Absolutely. They don't look for deltas. They look for flat areas, right, that are well drained. And geologically, a delta does that.
Perfect.
So as the ice is melting back, it gets to the Holyoke Range right around 17,000 years ago, and it gets to the Chicopee area here right around that same time. And then eventually, as the ice melts, the lake is getting longer and longer and longer as the ice melts. By 14,000 years ago, the lake has gotten all the way to West Burke, Vermont, up beyond St. Johnsbury and Littleton, New Hampshire. It was way up there. Wow. So the lake in its entirety was 200 miles long.
Okay.
There were places where it was closed off because a delta would build out and close off a section, but the water level was still the same. So they consider it all one lake, even though it had several sections. So from 18,000 and eventually to 14,000, that was Lake Hitchcock, shaping our valley here with all the deposits, the clay, the gravel that came into that old lake.
And eventually, now, if people can go, and this shocked me. I thought this was from the Middle East, but you said this is Sunderland.
Yeah, this is the Sunderland Delta. There's a gravel company there called Delta Gravel. And as we were talking, every river that came into the old Lake Hitchcock would build these deposits called deltas. Now, deltas are extremely interesting because when they build out, the river comes in at the shoreline and builds a shoreline deposit. But underwater, there's a pile of gravel and sand that's kind of supporting all of this, but it's deposited at an angle. And you don't see that because it's underwater. You see the stream coming in, but you don't see the angled bedding.
The sediment that just keeps building and building.
Right. So the stream deposit is called the topset bed, and then the beds that are deposited underwater at an angle are called foreset beds.
Okay.
So as the whole process goes on, the topset builds out, and then the foreset builds out, and the topset builds out, and the foreset, and so forth, and so forth, and so forth.
Now, in this image, is that what those lines in the side of that cliff are showing?
Exactly. So if you look closely at this view, you'll see that the top of this flat surface here, way up at the top, you can see flat layers.
Way up here.
There you go. Those are the stream deposits that were coming into Lake Hitchcock. So that's the so-called topset bed. And then underneath, deeper down,
that's angled lines.
Yep. See, that used to be underwater. And those are the foresets that were building out gradually, layer by layer by layer, into Lake Hitchcock. So this is a very unusual picture because this is an active gravel pit, and so the loaders were taking the gravel away from this section of the pit a couple of years ago, and they happened to be cutting it just at a 90-degree
perfect angle.
Perfect angle.
If they cut it any other way, you never would have noticed.
Yeah, it wouldn't be as obvious. But the other thing is, within a few days, this is just loose gravel, and the whole bank will collapse.
Is that what that sort of dusty area is, down here at the bottom?
At the bottom, yeah. So that dusty area at the bottom would go all the way to the top, and the bank would have just collapsed, and you would not see these layers. So just the fact that we can see the layers exposed is very unusual. So I was able to get that picture at just the right time.
Fantastic. We're up on our next commercial break. Stay with us. We're back with more after this.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry. This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Welcome back, everyone. We are talking about these things. These are rocks that you can find in our general area. There is a slew of them, but it all comes down to the way the Connecticut River Valley was formed. Sitting across the desk from me today is Professor Richard Little. Professor, thank you again so very much for joining me. We talked about armored mud balls. We talked about Lake Hitchcock, which formed the Connecticut River Valley. These rocks over here on the other side of the table, a number of different examples of how this area of our world has changed over the millions of years. I want to pick up this picture we showed very briefly earlier. Mm-hmm. It's also the image that's on your shirt. This is what Lake Hitchcock and the Holyoke Range would have looked like, 200 million years ago?
Okay, I have to correct you because even though we see water in this picture, there were lakes in the old Connecticut Valley. This is the 200 million year old Jurassic view.
Oh, okay.
Not Lake Hitchcock.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So those mountains look way bigger than what I see when I drive around this area.
Yeah.
Were they way bigger?
Yeah, they were bigger. If we talk about mountains, we need to go back and talk about two different types of mountains here.
Okay.
And maybe three if we can go on for another 5 hours beyond this. So here we go. Let's talk about mountains for a little bit. So first of all, there's not many people here in your audience that ever remember Pangea because it's split up.
If there are, I want to interview them.
Yeah, exactly. So it's split about 200 million years ago. But before that, Pangea was a supercontinent. So all these diverse pieces of the Earth's crust came together as they do every couple 100 million years, actually. Because, when you move things around, I think people are familiar with plate tectonics,
right.
The fact that the crust is moving around. And we're moving around on a globe. So when you move things on a globe, you're going to come together at some point, right? There's no way to just keep going off the edge. So in any event, about over the course of several 100 million years, culminating by, about 200 million years ago, 250 million years ago, all these pieces of the Earth's crust came together in one spot, and that was the supercontinent of Pangaea. So if you look at the geography of this, we used to be on the margin of an ocean right through western Massachusetts here. Actually, it was right along the state boundary of Connecticut, New York, and Vermont. That was the shoreline of old North America.
Really?
So we weren't even here yet. New England
So on
was,
the other side of the Berkshires, right along
Yeah,
that line, Connecticut,
exactly.
Massachusetts, New York, Vermont.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was our shoreline. So New England, most of New England was not even here yet.
Right.
And so pieces of crust came together and then built New England piece by piece by piece. There's several pieces that came together, not just one, but it was culminated by a huge piece that came in, which was Africa and South America. At that time, it was called Gondwana, but it came in and that completed the puzzle. And so that left the Connecticut Valley in the middle of this huge continent, once again, called Pangaea. And the interesting thing about this is that as these pieces were coming together, they made the compression made mountains, and those mountains, as they erode today, we see the middle parts of these mountains. Those are the rocks that we find commonly over our landscape. Now, the
Interesting.
Connecticut Valley isn't here yet. We're just kind of up in those mountains.
Right.
So could I point to a rock over here? 'Cause I'd
Absolutely.
like to
Switch gears.
show you something that we'll probably have on their walk called. This is Goshen stone. Let's see.
Come a little forward with it. And there we go, right there.
So you'll see this shiny rock stone. It's Goshen, also Ashfield. So it's something that we call a schist. Now, many people are familiar with slate, slate, as well as schist used to be mud. This is a rock that's been metamorphosed. This was the mud of the old ocean before Pangaea. So I talked about the shoreline being over there along extreme western Massachusetts.
Right.
Well, when you go off of every shoreline, you get mud in the ocean. This was the mud that has been crushed by colliding continents, and the heat and pressure recrystallized the components into this mica-rich, shiny rock, sometimes with garnets that poke through here with a little bit of red,
Okay.
and that's called a schist. And it's related to a slate. A slate is just a less metamorphosed version of that mud.
Okay.
So you have the mud of a Pangaea ocean on
Everywhere.
your rooftop,
Yeah,
perhaps.
exactly.
The rain out of your house. And if you have a schist, it may be on your walkway.
Okay.
So
All right.
that's the interesting thing here.
What's the big one with the stripes on it?
Okay. Also, when continents collide, you have, once again, extreme heat and pressure. And one of the things that happens with heat and pressure is that the minerals can be recrystallized, but not completely melt. If they completely melt, you get a granite, and that's illustrated by this one right here.
Okay.
Everything's random. If you can
Yeah.
perhaps see that all the minerals in here are random. This is an old magma chamber that was under a volcano as those plates were coming together. And today it is a granite. And then if you take a granite and give it some heat and pressure to metamorphose the granite, it will become this rock here, is stripy, and that's called a gneiss. And that's a Gneiss. And this is the source of many really bad geology jokes. Hey, is this a nice rock?
It's a nice rock.
Yeah, nice rock.
No, it's not a nice rock. Good try.
And now, the thing that I really like about this rock right here is that there is a prominent crack that has separated the layers.
Okay.
So sometime after this rock had formed, there was an earthquake, because that's how you break rocks. You need an earthquake to break rocks. And then
It shifted.
It shifted.
You can see where the lines were connected at one point and are no longer.
Every time you get a break in the earth, there's going to be groundwater that will find its way into the break and bring minerals to cement it, like super glue, cementing it back together.
Okay.
And so this is a fossil earthquake right here.
Interesting.
In this rock. So it's a nice rock, but it does have a fault.
Very good. Very good. So I do want to switch images for a moment and bring up this one that's on the screen. This is Connecticut, but we've only got about 3 minutes left. But I wanted you to tell me a little bit about this one.
Yeah, so we need to talk about the Holyoke Range here.
Okay.
So the Holyoke Range is a wonderful, wonderful range here up and down the valley. But the Holyoke Range is not part of the collisional stresses that made Pangea. In order to get the Holyoke Range, as well as the condition for the armored mudballs and the dinosaur footprints we have here, we have to split Pangea. And when Pangea splits, that's where we get this valley like you showed earlier, that Will Sillen painting. That's the Jurassic Valley.
Okay.
And it's got a mountain on one side, and there's a big faulted valley on the other side. And that's what we had during the pull apart. So the pull apart gives you some different geology than the compressional stress. So back to the pull apart, it gives us a rift valley, just like Death Valley today. I love going to Death Valley because it's like going into the Jurassic of Massachusetts. And
stepping back in time.
Yeah, exactly. Without the dinosaurs to eat you. So it's,
Is it even safer?
Much safer. So if we go back to that old Rift Valley, it is possible to have lava coming out of those fault lines, which is what happened. So the lava comes out, fills the valley and all the surrounding areas as well. A very, very large lava flow at about 200 million years ago. And that's the source of the beginning of the Holyoke Range. But
this is an image of the Holyoke Range right where the Oxbow Marina is.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a really good one to look at because lava comes out flat. It's like a flood. It's all flat, hardens into a rock, of course. But in our Rift Valley, the continent's Pangea is still splitting. And so all the flat rocks that were here in this Rift Valley, they get tilted by the pull apart.
Okay.
Because it is still pulling apart and rifting. And so the lava that came out flat, as well as all the other sedimentary rocks in the valley, are now tilted because of the pull apart faulting along the rift. And now you have to have erosion because this was happening 200 million years ago.
Right.
And you go forward to the present day and you have erosion basically over the last roughly 12 million years or so. You get a lot of erosion. Hard rocks, here's a geological fact for everybody. If you see a rock that is high, a landscape that's high, that's a hard rock.
Okay.
Because it didn't erode while everything else around it.
Like Mount Tom.
Exactly, yeah.
Proven Mountain.
Yep.
Okay.
So the lava is harder than the surrounding sedimentary rocks. And so the middle, it's like a sandwich here. We have sedimentary rocks in the valley with lava in the middle of the sequence. And so when you erode the bread off the sandwich, the middle sticks up.
Interesting.
And
okay.
so that's why in that previous picture, you can just see this ridge line going right down through a valley because the surroundings are weaker. They got eroded away. And if you were on that mountainside hiking south, you would go all the way to New Haven.
Right.
And that's where that map showed you there, the map of Connecticut. So the Holyoke Range is just the beginning of a really long ridge line that goes all the way to New Haven. But actually, it's very simple because it's not a compressional stress, Himalayan type mountain range.
Right.
It is just a slab of almost 400-foot thick lava that got tilted.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's kind of a simple origin of the Holyoke Range.
Professor Little, I cannot thank you enough for your time today. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Folks, you have to go check out this book. ArmoredMudballs.rocks is the website you can go to track this down. But this will give you a great idea of what you can find under our feet. Professor Little, thank you. This has been a fascinating conversation.
Oh, I enjoyed it so much.
Good seeing you. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.